Hello, my name is Rich Fallat, and I am going to show you a presentation on AI, artificial intelligence data storage on the blockchain. Before digging into why it's important to put artificial intelligence data on the blockchain, I'm going to go into some of the background. So one of the big problems with artificial intelligence right now is the input data can lead to really bad results, no matter how good the algorithm used. For example, Amazon created a sexist hiring algorithm, flawed criminological software that essentially was biased towards different races. Facebook's ad algorithm would actually target people depending on their demographic. And also Microsoft Tay was a chatbot that learned from Twitter, and it was actually shut down within 16 hours because it was using a bunch of racist and misogynistic language. One of the important things about artificial intelligence nowadays is the idea of explainable artificial intelligence. So the way artificial intelligence works is it takes tons and tons of data. Early implementations of this was essentially a black box. So take all this data, create an artificial intelligence algorithm, and out came this really cool model that did some good things. But now the trend is to try to make this black box model explainable. So this is important for several reasons. First, helping with the adoption of artificial intelligence. Secondly, it's going to help with user trust of artificial intelligence because, there is a lot of public fear of this new technology. Legislative restrictions such as GDPR with explainable artificial intelligence. One can imagine that all the data is more transparent and we know what's going in so that there aren't any compliance issues. Also critical areas such as medicine, where the models have to be spot on and trusted without any doubt. And then finally, explainable models are just going to help create bigger impacts because as the model evolves, we're going to be able to have a better measurement of how it's getting better and how to improve upon these different models. So then in comes blockchain technology. So blockchain ledgers, first and foremost, in regards to AI, it's going to provide a bunch of security because all the data that's stored on the blockchain can only be created, inserted, and it can't be updated or destroyed. So it's immutable. So there's a couple of different types of data that this presentation is going to explore. So first is the decision data problem. So this is, as we can see in this image, kind of the typical AI model. Right now it's kind of known as a black box. So there's all this data, it gets put into an algorithm. We don't really know what happens, but there comes an output and we just kind of trust okay, that's a pretty good assessment, but how did it really determine this output? So now with explainable AI, we can add an explainability layer onto this process. So, for example, when these algorithms are run, we can, as seen in this picture, the model can actually export a report, which can tell why exactly the artificial intelligence algorithm came up with that output. So it could have all the different data points, all the weights and features that were important for the AI model to come to that conclusion. So, for example, if we're going to be using this AI decision data, so let's say version 2.0 of this model ran a bunch of time for all these different users and customers. The idea is that that decision data gets saved on the blockchain. So every time an AI model comes up with a decision, it gets saved on the blockchain. And with that, you get data lineage. So all the data for the model can be tracked at every single point in time through the evolution of this model. For some of the research that went into this presentation proposes a decision data model that's kind of focused around smart cities. One good example for maybe an upcoming smart city is this idea of UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles. And what can happen is with these UAVs, the idea in the future is that these UAVs will come together in swarms to do different things. They can do things like potentially put fires out and all sorts of different things. But if the decision data is saved on a blockchain where the data is tamper-proof and it can never be messed with, each of these UAVs could actually have a reputation score associated with it. So if there's a swarm of say 10 UAVs and they need 20 UAVs, there can be an entire automated system where each UAV can be vetted automatically without any human intervention. So having this decision data on the blockchain is one really interesting use case for how smart cities and even autonomous vehicles, once we have smart car or autonomous cars driving around, the idea is all these cars are going to be kind of talking to one another. So if this decision data is kept on a tamper-proof blockchain, it'll be much more reliable. The second problem that I wanted to look into is the learning data problem. So in order for an algorithm to learn, an AI algorithm, it needs a ton of input data. So there's a bunch of input data that, for example, deep neural networks will learn from. One of the things that can be done is all of the data that the AI algorithm learns from can actually exist on the blockchain. Currently, a lot of this is done, for example, on a single server. There might be a bunch of data on a single server, and that can present a security risk, because somebody can go in there and actually poison the data and have several different types of attacks to basically manipulate the data so that the models will come out with some sort of bad outcome. One of the proposals is that all the actual learning data is on the blockchain itself. So why would the blockchain be good for this? One really good example, the RAND Corporation actually calculated, for example, with the automated vehicles. In order for automated vehicles to operate safely, they're going to require 500 billion to 1 trillion miles traveled and recorded. So Toyota, which is partnering with Ocean Protocol, which is we're going to get into in a little bit, says that this is just unfeasible. So if all this training data for different autonomous vehicles were put onto a public blockchain where it was all pulled together from all the different car manufacturers, we could definitely converge onto a safe autonomous vehicle faster. So what blockchain will provide is data integrity, data reliability, and persistence. With that, we're going to be able to get data lineage and all sorts of really good things that just having this persistent immutable data on the blockchain. So Ocean Protocol, of these different use cases and ideas for putting artificial intelligence data on the blockchain, the Ocean Protocol is probably furthest along, at least as far as the research that I've done. So this is actually on a permissionless blockchain. It's a decentralized protocol where data for artificial intelligence data sets will live on this, as well as different artificial intelligence algorithms and a bunch of other stuff. It's actually really deep, and I think it's interesting that it's an actual protocol as well. So another thing interesting about the Ocean Protocol is it will be an incentivization structure to it, and there's a lot of different metrics for using blockchain with artificial intelligence data. Auditability, so being able to actually go back through the entire history of an artificial intelligence model, knowing what data went into that model at any point in time. Compliance is another really important issue. So we know exactly what kind of data is going into these artificial intelligence models. As mentioned, data management, so having provenance and basically an entire history of the data living on the blockchain. One could imagine being able to see data that's causing bias and being able to whitelist and blacklist certain types of data to go into models and models as they evolve. Data security, so blockchain provides military level cryptography, process automation, so with the smart city example, being able to have these UAVs autonomous control over themselves, like adding new UAVs to their swarm. Data sharing. So, for example, in the autonomous vehicle car manufacturer example, having all these different car manufacturers pull them all together so that we can get to a point where autonomous vehicles are something that's feasible, which they are not currently. Transparency, being able to have all of the artificial intelligence data transparent could be a really good thing, because right now it seems that the public does not really trust it that much. Being able to have the public actually audit the data going in, I think, could be a really strong case to just make it a much more acceptable technology. And then going into trust, the example of having the UAV reputation scoring. So different agents could have reputation scores that are recorded on the blockchain, and there's no way to tamper with it. Someone's not going to be able to say, okay, this UAV is checked by a human being, and we just trust that it's going to be able to fly around our city and not crash into someone's front window. There are other alternatives that are already out there that are kind of doing these things. Pachyderm is one of them. So this is essentially like Git for data scientists. It's built to work with Kubernetes, so it's a containerized platform. It's able to go different multi-cloud scenarios, and it kind of provides a lot of the things that blockchain could just do automatically inherently. And Pachyderm is a current way to do this off-chain with a microservices type approach. So in conclusion, blockchain technology can help create AI models that are explainable, immutable, auditable, secure, decentralized, which is a very interesting concept for different AI data and the decision data that could just live out there for the public to see, trustworthiness, and a whole lot more. So it's not clear whether this AI model data and learning data should live on public or private blockchains, but it could do both. One of the interesting things, as mentioned, the Ocean Protocol is actually a permissionless public blockchain. At least that's the plan right now, and there are incentives for folks to add data and contribute to the consensus mechanism. So where can we find more? I think that Ocean Protocol is a really good place to start if you're interested to look more into AI data that's living on the blockchain. There are also various white papers that are included in the references, but this is a really good place to start. So you can simply go to oceanprotocol.com or actually read the Ocean Protocol white paper, a decentralized substrate for AI data and services, the technical white paper. Thank you so much for listening.